2009 PISA shock that resonated particularly for Germany might be evident again in 2018, where we see the introduction of the Cultural Competence Unit. Some of you may be familiar with the PISA shock from 2009, where the Germans were quite shocked that their education system had underperformed to their expectations, and there was a lot of blame attributed to migrants in the community for dragging down the results. We might see a similar shock resonate through those countries that participate, particularly the countries that do strongest at the moment in terms of literacy, numeracy and science. If we think about Singapore, Switzerland, Shanghai, some of the countries that do very well but are quite insular in terms of migration, in terms of language proficiency, in terms of identification and tolerance of different cultures. I'll use Switzerland as an example because it's a really interesting one. Switzerland, situated in Europe, landlocked, but obviously has a really strong education system, high levels of teacher effectiveness, great educational leadership, strong policies that do designate equal opportunity and opportunities to learn in the education system. But Switzerland's also an interesting case. Most recently, Switzerland has moved to ban the burqa, ban the niqab, move towards not tolerating, not accepting those from Islamic backgrounds in particular. So Switzerland's a really interesting case study. We might see a very different response in terms of their performance. If there are questions about how much you accept others from different religions, how willing you are to interact with students from different cultures, how willing you are to learn languages that might not be part of your neighbouring countries in particular, we might see a real shake-up here. I think it's a really interesting time. When we look at the countries that perform most strongly, many of them do have quite insular systems where they don't have enormous amounts of migration. Countries like the United States, that already performs quite lowly in terms of the PISA assessment, might instead have a different perspective. Many students have to learn languages, for example, in the United States. Many students have opportunities to travel. So you may see countries like the United States that continually underperform start to actually shift up because of the cultural competence component. You may see some shocks coming across the different countries in terms of what students think about those who are different. So I think it's important that we prepare ourselves to think about students' responses, whether they are going to be influenced by what students are seeing in the media, and whether it does give us a dialogue and an open discussion about what is being taught in schools. If schools are a place of positive influence, or if schools are a place where the status quo is being reinforced, not necessarily in a positive way.